Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. For mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, log on to Leading Edge Radio Network. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net, and 6 p.m., thepunditpress.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. We are speaking this segment with Robert Bluey, Vice President Publishing and Editor-in-Chief of the Daily Signal. He's talking to us about that Boehner-Obama budget deal, which uses the same accounting gimmick as Obamacare, and how it can be fought in the Senate as it's already passed the House. So, Robert, we were saying that government shutdown didn't hurt us as badly as mainstream or establishment Republicans would have us think, since we did rise up and take back the Senate. And you pointed out just before the break that many of those who would vote in the Senate for this budget deal would be breaking the promises they made on the campaign trail. What are the consequences for that kind of thing?
Well, the consequences, I think, ultimately come down to the American people and the decision that they make, whether it's in 2016, 2018, 2020, whenever that moment happens. But I think in the meantime, you have to. I mean, we live in a world, and the Daily Signal and your radio show is a great example of this, where we don't have to rely anymore on the mainstream media. We can have direct, authentic communication with the American people, and the American people can have direct, authentic communication with their elected representatives, whether that's through social media. And you've seen this plenty of times where constituents rise up and make their voice heard, and because of their networks and because of the followings they themselves have been able to gather, have been able to influence change that happens in Washington, D.C. So people may be discouraged, but I think that on these policy battles, the members of Congress still do pay attention to what their constituents are saying, because they know that they have to go before the voters every 2 years, or in the case of senators, every 6 years.
And I do think Boehner's exit here is indicative of what you're saying. I mean, he could have sat, if the establishment was ruling the day, he could have sat until, his a ripe old age. But he's exiting because of all the turmoil. He's constantly got a target painted on his back, which, I guess now, we're going to have a new target given the changeover at this point. But, you've got a second article here that I don't want to neglect. And you did talk a little bit about it before the break. You talked about the fact that this is, yes, a budget discussion, but it's actually being driven by a debt limit hike proposal, and that's the closer deadline here, the November 3rd deadline. You've got an article out on a poll that says 61% of Americans oppose the debt limit hike, or they at least want it tied to some kind of spending cuts. Talk to us about this poll.
Yeah, it's amazing. This is just another great example of how out of touch Washington is with the American people. This is a poll from the Associated Press, so this is not a conservative outfit that's doing the poll. This is the Associated Press, and it reveals that half of Americans, 50%, want any debt limit tied to spending cuts. So they don't want Congress to pass an increase in the debt limit unless there are spending cuts associated with it. Another 11% say don't even do that. Don't pass the debt limit at all. If you need to basically borrow more money, cut government and figure out a way to do it that way. 61%. There's another 56 when polled on a separate question. 56% said that they would be willing to shut down the government in order to enforce spending cuts, in order to get spending cuts. So there is a majority of Americans. What's that?
Yeah, that's a majority.
A majority. There are 56% are saying shut down the government. A majority of Americans are ready for this fight to take place in Washington, and unfortunately, the leaders that are in Washington aren't ready to fight.
Yeah, I guess this go along, get along has just become a way of life for them, and this is kind of a shock to the system. My producer has a few questions for you. Rick, take it away.
Rob, great to have you with us today. Rob, I love the first line of this article. Speaker John Boehner stepped to the podium this morning to proclaim that he has listened to the American people when crafting his budget deal with Barack Obama. Rob, in my opinion, this shows how out of touch John Boehner is with the American people. That one line right there, to me, shows the problem that we have with this leadership in Congress right now, how out of touch he is.
It struck me as just so profound that he could get up there in front of the podium and say that when we just went over the polling numbers to show that it's the exact opposite way the American people feel. But again, this is why when you look at congressional approval rating, it's so low, and I think it's why you've had some members of Congress, the House Freedom Caucus, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, other congressmen who've been willing to stand up to leadership. Mark Meadows, the congressman from North Carolina, went so far as to file a motion to vacate, basically depose Boehner, and many people think that that's what ultimately forced him out of a job. So, there are people fighting on behalf of the American people in Washington.
But Rob, I need to ask you this: with that being said, with what you just being said, who are they bringing in my opinion? Who is the Congress bringing in but a John Boehner clone and Paul Ryan? Am I wrong?
Well, I hate to say it, this is where only time will tell. I mean, Paul Ryan has made some promises to members of this conservative House Freedom Caucus. He will change the way things are done. Certainly, Paul Ryan does not have a conservative voting record. The Heritage Action for America, our sister organization, gives him a 63% on its scorecard. That's a failing grade, let's face it, if you're in school. Not good on a lot of policy issues, but he has made some promises that he will restore the process of bringing legislation to the floor. He's not going to rely on Democratic votes to pass bills. So if maybe we put the policy stuff on the side and he adheres to his promise on the process, there could be marginal improvements, I think, because you won't have a situation. For instance, the Export-Import Bank, this budget deal, these things wouldn't be coming up even for a vote. John Boehner is forcing them to the floor for a vote because he knows he can get the Democrats to sign off on these things. He can't get a majority of Republicans, but he can get a majority of Democrats.
Bob, in your article, and I just want to point this out for our audience, you right here, the Obama-Boehner deal would boost the $18.1 trillion debt ceiling by at least $1.5 trillion. And, Rob, I like to point out to my audience this fact. The federal government takes in about $2.2 trillion a year. So to pay off this debt, the federal government would have to stop spending money for the next 10 years, continuing to take in at its current rate, $2.2 trillion, not spend another dime for the next 10 years to pay this off. Maybe this is what the American people see that Congress doesn't see, that this is unrealistic. These debts are unrealistic and are going to destroy our economy and destroy our country.
Well, unless something is done, yes, that's the direction we're headed. And this is the thing we were talking about before the break. You have a situation where the American people rose up and put Republicans in charge of the U.S. Senate to have a confrontation with the president and start to turn things around. And what we've seen for the first 9-10 months of the year is no fight at all. And I think that's why people are so frustrated and angry. And that's why when you look at the presidential campaign, that's why all of the outsider candidates are leading in the polls. They don't want to elect politicians to the White House.
Rob Louie, Vice President and Publisher, Editor-in-Chief of the Daily Signal. Rob, you know how I start my morning? Well, I get a cup of coffee.
The morning bell.
I get a cup of coffee, I pet the kitty cat, I open the computer, and I check out the Daily Signal and the Morning Bell. Rob, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Please tell our audience where they could follow your great work.
Well, I hope your listeners will sign up for the Morning Bell. If you go to dailysignal.com, you can get all of the news and commentary and analysis, plus sign up for that email. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter, too. I mean, that's where you get more and more people are getting their news, and we're active on both platforms.
Hey, Rob, you mentioned Heritage Action's chart on rating.
Yeah.
Okay. Check that again, because I think Paul Ryan is actually a little lower than that 62% that you mentioned.
Well, that's his lifetime score. So he does. Yes, he has a lower score. I think it's like 57% for this particular Congress. So in recent years it's lower than it has been. HeritageAction.com is the grassroots organization that is the sister organization to us. That's where if you want to get involved in conservative grassroots politics and activism, check it out there. They have a great Sentinel program, which I know they'd love to get your listeners plugged in to be active with. Great tools there, Rob. In fact, when Boehner resigned and we were talking about Meadows, when we were talking about McCarthy and Webster and all that, that's where I went to. I went to their scorecards to let our listeners know how these people were rated as far as their conservative factor goes. Hey, Rob, again, Rob Bluey, Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for all you do.
Take care. God bless. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Anna Little and Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network. WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with CPR Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pun and Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, and AMFM247.com. See, I don't have to be a genius. I don't have to have a brain, but I do know where the brains are. Thanks to Rob Bluey. Want to thank him for joining us. We'll be right back.
You've heard Paul Delks playing the music on the Your Music Matters morning show. He is also an experienced mortgage loan officer working for U.S. Mortgage Corporation and assists homeowners navigate the reverse mortgage process. If you are finding yourself asking questions whether or not you set aside enough for retirement, Paul can sit down with you, your family, and your financial advisor and discuss how a reverse mortgage may be a valuable resource for your retirement plan. You will be responsible for paying your taxes and insurance, and the reverse mortgage can help with this and other expenses, such as home health care or other untimely bills. Put Paul's 20-plus years of experience to work for you, as choosing the right option for your situation can be critical. Call Paul at U.S. Mortgage Corporation at 877-213-9977. That's 877-213-9977. Or go to seniormatters.info for more information. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is a licensed mortgage banker in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and an equal housing lender. NMLS number 3901. U.S. Mortgage Corporation is located at 201 Old Country Road, Suite 140, Melville, New York, 11747. This advertisement applies to first lien mortgages. Paul E. Dilks, NMLS is 485904.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding. To become the Conservative Commandos radio